Okay, so now let's continue. So serogenetics and cytogenetics, right? So and this is for both the male reproductive organs and for the male reproductive systems and the female reproductive systems. So let's start with serogenetics. See, serogenetics, right? So serogenetics refers to the branch of genetics that studies serological proteins. Okay, so meaning the serum proteins. See, serum essentially means, and you can see this here. It is blood plasma minus the platelets. Okay, it is the blood plasma, okay, minus the platelets, meaning you have written certain you have sort of removed certain kind of antibodies and proteins and hormones, uh, uh, so you basically, it's a liquid component of the blood that doesn't contain RBCs and WBCs and all of that, but it actually contains, certain kind of antibodies. It contains certain kinds of hormones. It contains certain kinds of proteins, right? All of those things here. Okay, so this is your serum. Now, the study of this thing is essentially going to be your serogenetics, studying the genetic sort of components here. So what kind of proteins? See, proteins, there are many proteins. Okay, so any kind of antigen, right? So you have albumins, okay, that helps in maintaining blood volume, blood cup pressure. There is globulins, which are basically, I guess, those are antibodies and immunoglobulins, right? You have fibrinogen, which is for blood clotting. You have certain kinds of enzymes. But what is more important is that, it contains hormones, right? So, and there are certain kind of hormones that we have to study in a little more detail, right? So because the hormones travel in the bloodstream, right? So, and their levels have to be detected, can be detected in the serum, and we also have to understand their functioning and so on and so forth, right? So there are others as well. So this is basically what it is. So serogenetics is nothing but the study of hormones, and their functions in the reproduction process. Okay, so we have to go a little more in detail here, right? So we'll take a look at this. So far, is it clear? Okay, so all good. Shall we go and try to analyze all the serums, and let's try to sort of like go through, your all the hormones. Good. Okay, so far so good. So I know that for some of you, this is all very new, okay, especially the ones who have not taken bio in recent times, right? So don't worry about this, okay? So we will do it. I'm assuming that all of you are beginners, and from the very beginning, in very, very simple sort of terms, I'm going to go through this, right? So I'm not even assuming that you remember that hypothalamus to pituitary gland to, certain kind of hormones, everything that we've seen in Benaki. I'll explain everything from, fresh. Okay, but this is the male reproductive system that we are seeing, right? See, in the male reproductive system, right? So you have the hypothalamus, if you can see this here. So I've just given you a diagram. Okay, so hypothalamus basically initiates the serogenetic sort of a process, right? So it starts by releasing the gonadotropin releasing hormones. Okay, so GnRH as we call them. This basically, so these hormones basically sort of reach your anterior pituitary gland, and this will prompt the pituitary gland to sort of release certain gonadotropins. Okay, so gonadotropin, I have given it as spelling is mistake, okay, but don't worry about that. Okay, so it releases gonadotropins like what? FSH, LH, right? So just try to remember these things. Okay, so think of this as just let me get my pen. Okay, as HGP, like Human Genome Project. Okay, HGP is like Human Genome Project. Okay, hypothalamus. Okay, uh, um, releases, okay, gonadotropin releasing hormones, GnRH. Okay, GnRH. Okay, that will sort of stimulate the anterior pituitary gland to release FSH and LH. Okay, let me see if I can just draw this. Exactly what I've drawn here in on the left hand side. You could basically note that down. It's like short notes for you so that it is easy to remember. Okay, so what you have here is, your hypothalamus, right? So the hypothalamus releases GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormones, to the anterior pituitary gland. This prompts the release of two types of gonadotropins. One is the follicle stimulating hormone, the other is the luteinizing hormone, right? So how these hormones function, okay, and it's very important that they function for reproductive aspects, right? Okay, and so this is basically what we have to sort of study in this particular topic. Is this clear? AGP is basically what Human Genome Project. So hypothalamus. So I mean, if only if it is new, but over a period of time, if you see this again and again, right? So it'll be like you know this in and out, right? So in and out, you would probably know this. Okay, so that is that. So what is gonadotropin? See, gonadotropins are those hormones that that play a role in reproductive system. Okay, hormones that play a role in reproductive system. Okay, so hormones that play a role in reproductive system. Okay, so these are generally produced by your pituitary gland, which is a small gland at the base of the brain, right? So when you have the brain, at the base of the brain, you basically have a small little gland that is your pituitary gland. It basically has two parts, okay, anterior and posterior, but we are talking about the anterior part of it, right? So what kind of gonadotropins does it release? Two different types, okay, two main types: follicle stimulating hormone, and the second one is your luteinizing hormone. Okay, is that clear? So hypothalamus, okay, hypothalamus say GnRH to anterior pituitary gland, and that basically releases FSH and LH. Is this clear? If you guys can give me a confirmation that you're able to follow, then it'll tell me the pace at which I can go. Right? So far so good. Now, we have to basically take a look at the male reproductive system and try to understand the hormones in the role of FSH and LH in males. Okay, the FSH and LH in males. Now, if you guys remember, we've already seen this in a particular table that you have written down in previous topics, right? So one was in adolescence and puberty related topics, and the second time we saw this was, I believe, in menarche and menopause related topics, right? So just by giving this particular table, you can sort of like encapsulate the entire set of ideas. Okay, so what does FSH do? It basically results in something called spermatogenesis, right? Spermatogenesis, right? Spermatogenesis, and we have just seen what is spermatogenesis, right? Okay, spermatogenesis is the process through which uh, um, the process through which sperm production basically takes place, and we'll take a look at this today, right? So it is a process in which the in males, where specialized cells in testes, okay, they'll undergo meiosis, okay, certain kind of divisions in order to produce sperm cells, right? So that is your spermatogenesis. Okay, so a new term. Then, what does luteinizing hormone do in males, right? So it results in the secretion of testosterone, and which we all know that it performs many different kind of functions. One of which, okay, for reproductive purpose, is the growth of secondary sexual characters, right? So that is that. Okay, if you can remember this table and if you can study this, it is good to go, right? You're good to go. Now let's take a look at one by one. Okay, so let's take a look at this one by one, little more in detail, right? So little more in detail. Okay, the first one is going to be the follicle stimulating hormone, FSH. Okay, then we'll take a look at the second one, which is going to be the LH. Okay, so FSH, what does FSH do? It basically is responsible for, as we said, the spermatogenesis, which we can see a little more in detail, right? So FSH is basically what stimulates, okay, the initiation of your spermatogenesis. So FSH, which is released by the anterior pituitary gland, it acts as a key regulator in initiating and continuing of the process of spermatogenesis, right? So which is the process of sperm production in the testes. Okay, then the second is, okay, so we have another kind of a cell. Okay, so there is a particular kind of a cell here that we're going to talk about, which is the Sertoli cells. Okay, it is a Sertoli cells. Okay, the Sertoli cells. Sertoli cells also play a very important role when it comes to your sperm production. So Sertoli cells, in very short, they are responsible for providing, a support to development of sperm cells. Okay, it provides structural and nutritional sort of support to your sperm cells. So if I have to sort of encapsulate this idea, so your FSH, okay, and your Sertoli cells and sperm production, right? So FSH stimulates the Sertoli cells, and Sertoli cells basically result in the sperm cup production, right? So that is that. Sertoli cells basically are responsible for providing structural and nutritional support to developing sperm cells. Okay, so that is that. Okay, we'll go into a little more detail in a little while. Okay, so that is that. Is this clear? So follicle stimulating hormone, okay, stimulates the Sertoli cells. Sertoli cells are the ones that are responsible for your sperm production. Okay, so essentially what you have done is that we have talked about FSH. How does it do the spermatogenesis? The follicle stimulating hormone sort of stimulates the Sertoli cells, and Sertoli cells are very, very important when it comes to providing certain kinds of support to developing of the sperm cells, right? Structural, nutritional kind of support. That is your follicle stimulating hormones purpose. Second is the luteinizing hormone, right? So luteinizing hormone. See, so luteinizing hormone, okay, so is the next one. So if in the table, if you had seen this, luteinizing hormone does what? It results in the secretion of your testosterone, right? So which plays a role in the growth of secondary sexual characters, right? So this is essentially what it does. Okay, so that is that. Uh, how does it result in the development of testosterone? So if you see this here, so Leydig cells, okay, so Leydig cells basically has another sort of a term as well. Okay, so Sertoli cells, Leydig cells. Leydig cells are also known as your interstitial cells. I'll tell you exactly what it is in the next topic. Okay, this basically helps in the production of testosterone. Okay, so in the context of the male reproductive system, there are certain cells, okay, the Leydig cells, okay, which are found in the spaces in between some of the tubules that we had seen in the testes. Okay, they those are the ones that actually produce and secrete testosterone, which is an important sort of a male sex hormone here. Okay, is that clear? So LH released by the anterior pituitary gland. Okay, this will play a role in stimulating the production of the testosterone, which is the primary male sex hormone. Right. So LH, the hormone basically acts on the Leydig cells. Okay, which, as I told you, is located in the interstitial tissue, right, of the testes. Meaning it's basically present in the testes in certain areas. Okay, this basically helps in testosterone. So upon binding with the Leydig cells, LH will basically trigger some sort of processes, biochemical processes within these cells, and this will lead to the synthesis and release of the testosterone into the bloodstream. Now, once that is sort of released into the bloodstream, this is essential for the male characteristics to sort of develop. Right. So testosterone is indispensable. Okay, very, very, very important. Okay, especially when it comes to the development of the male secondary sexual characteristics. Right. So this is the one that is not only in the secondary sexual characteristics in terms of the male external genitalia and all of that, but also in terms of the facial hair, in terms of the bodily hair, in terms of the deepening of the voice, in terms of the development of the muscle mass and the growth spurt, all of these kind of things, right? So it's a very, very crucial role with regard to the this entire set of processes. Okay, is this clear? So now, is this clear? So what was the first one? FSH, okay, stimulating the Sertoli cells for sperm production. What did the Leydig cells do? Leydig cells, also known as interstitial cells, results in testosterone production, right? So that is that. Okay, clear? Right. So if I can just summarize this, right? So what do we have here? So we have the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus basically releases the GnRH, okay? So which sort of stimulates the anterior pituitary glands to sort of release a couple of gonadotropins, okay? Gonadotropins, right? Which is your FSH, and the other one is your LH, right? So what does FSH do? We just saw FSH, right? FSH, okay, stimulates the Sertoli cells, and that results in your sperm production. And the other one is your Leydig cells. A luteinizing hormone basically sort of stimulates the Leydig cells, okay, or the interstitial cells in order to produce testosterone, right? So in summary, FSH and LH are going to work together in order to regulate the production of sperm and testosterone respectively, both of which are very, very important for from the perspective of the male reproductive system of functioning, okay, and their development. Okay, so that is that. Remember it as FSS. Okay, so follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, Sertoli cells, and sperm production, FSS. Okay, remember the other one as LLIT. Okay, which is your luteinizing hormone, Leydig cells or interstitial cells, and then your testosterone production. Okay, will you be able to remember this? Okay. FSS and LLIT. Okay, so that is that. So now you have basically got an idea of how these sort of hormones work from the male reproductive, from the perspective of the male reproductive system. Okay, because we have seen the female reproductive system in a great bit of detail. Now we are basically looking at the male reproductive system.